That we are a direct reflection of the people we hang out with. Well, how do we get to know better and better people to create our sphere of influence? Because come to Secret Knock.
That's right.
And one of the people at Secret Knock is going to teach you how to even do what we just did in a higher way. Put your hands together. Bob Donnell.
Well, thank you very much. You know, I got a question to ask you, and that is, how many of you guys like networking? Okay. Now, it's kind of a trick question because my tagline for the program I offer is called Connectology, and it says networking's for amateurs. Now, that's said tongue-in-cheek, just so you understand. The difference between what most people consider networking, not professional networkers, not like TR and not like Ivan Meisner and some of those guys who teach professional networking, but the difference between what most people consider networking and connecting is huge. Would you agree? It's so huge that it's kind of like if I took this projector and I set it close to the plug, but I never plugged it in. It's that huge. The difference is made once it's connected, once it's plugged in. Most people are going to networking events and going and functioning with just the wrong approach. Make a note of this, that your connections, the quality of your connections will be determined by the quality of questions you ask. The quality of your connections will be based on the quality of questions that you ask. And so people say, well, what's a good question? And I say, well, let's start with the wrong question. The wrong question is always this: what do you do? Now, how many of you guys have had somebody ask you that, maybe even today? Right? We all have. And that's because we fail to understand the importance of that leading question. That leading question sets up the tone for everything else that follows. And if you ask what you do, what's your name?
I'm Dr. Scott.
Dr. Scott, I'm Bob. If I said, Dr. Scott, what do you do?
I save lives by eliminating snoring and apnea.
Okay, now if I know somebody's snoring or apnea, that's great. If I don't, it ends the conversation, right? Typically, make note of this. When you or someone asks you what you do or what they do, it's typically because you just don't know a better question. If you knew a better question, you'd ask it. For example, if I want to get to know somebody, asking you what you do really doesn't tell me anything about who they are. See, most people are so focused on what do they do, what do they do? And you know why? Here's the two reasons why you're asking or why someone's asking what you do. A, because they want to know if what you do can serve them. Or B, if what they need and do can serve you. That's really the ultimate question. If I ask somebody what they do and they say a plumber, unless I need plumbing, doesn't help. So what's the thing is, we've got to understand we're more important than what we do. Who you are is more important than what you do, what you drive, the money in your bank account, the house that you live in. It's who you are that determines the quality of all of those other areas of your life. So in understanding that, we need to learn to ask better questions. So I'm always asked, Bob, well, what's a better question? If I can't ask, what do you do? And side note, the other day I was at a seminar like this, and somebody came up to me and they said, I'm supposed to be introduced to you. And I said, oh, great. Well, what's your name? And he told me his name. And he goes, so what do you do? And I said, I teach people to not ask, what do you do, as your leading question. And this is a really prominent guy, really just a great guy, and you can just see it when he asks. But he was just asking the wrong question. He's not going to be able to really get very far with that. So he goes, I need to learn some other questions. And we spent some time together, and we had a great time together. So when somebody asks you, what do you do, what they're really trying to find out is the wrong answer to the question they're really asking. What they're really asking is, who are you, and how do I get to know you better? But they just don't know the right question. So if I keep asking the wrong question, you get what? How many times? Every time. So only every time you get the wrong answer. So the best thing I can do is come up with questions, and I kind of keep them like quivers in my arrow, or my arrows in my quiver, right? I just kind of keep a bunch of them there. I have them written down, and I have them memorized, and I have them thought out, so that I understand that the questions that I'm going to ask when I'm meeting someone can be a different question every time based on the circumstances and the outcome that I want. Stephen Covey said what? Begin with the end in mind. So when you approach someone, when you start to talk to somebody, you have to have the end in mind. What is the end in mind? Is it to marry them? Is it to take them out on a date? Is it to develop a relationship, to do some kind of business? Is it to ask them to engage with you in something else? You've got to have that end in mind, and most people don't. They simply walk into a room and they go, okay, so how many people can I meet? Have you ever found yourself doing that? Where you walk in and you go, okay, well, there's a bunch of people here. Let's just talk to that guy. And you walk over. But where's the end in mind? What is it? So one of the questions I developed that works really, really well for me, and it doesn't necessarily mean it works well for you. So sometimes a contrived question that somebody tells you to ask at times can backfire because it just doesn't work well for you. It worked well for them, but it doesn't work well for you. So when I give this, I don't want you to say, oh, I'm going to write that down and copy it. What I want you to do is say, how can I utilize something like that to make a bigger impression when I meet someone? So what I asked some people is I'll say, so what's your name? Talene, I'm Bob. Nice to meet you. You know, whenever I meet somebody, I love to ask them just an obscure question, just to kind of get to know who you are rather than what you do. Do you mind?
No, not at all.
So the first thing I do is I set it up. The first thing I say is, before she can say, so what do you do? I say, you know, the first thing when I meet somebody, I love to ask them an obscure question. Do you mind if I ask you? I've never had somebody say, nope, don't ask me another question. Never. Never had it happen. So, yes.
No, I'm saying.
Oh, cool, wow. So it's you're very safe. I'm like, I'm God? So I'm like, that's a very safe place to do it. So the next thing I might say is I might say, you know, if you could wake up tomorrow morning and go anywhere in the world, and just by looking in your eyes, I can already see that you've got a place that you've had in mind. That place that you want to go, anywhere in the world, Tahiti, Bahamas, wherever you want to go, where would you go and who would you take with you? So what's your answer?
Still secret knock.
Okay, and who would you take with you?
I don't know, maybe my sister?
Okay, so how many sisters do you have?
Two.
Two. And so which one would you take?
Okay, then I answered that wrong. It's going to be a fight. So both sisters.
The one you like the most at that day, right?
Yes.
On that given day. So you would take your sister, and why do you think she would be interested in going to Secret Knock with you?
Well, these are great questions.
Thank you, I get that a lot. What you want to do is provoke thought within them that lets you know more about them as an individual. Do you understand that? So when I ask her sister, and I ask her how many sisters do you have, she has two. Now all of a sudden we're engaging in a conversation that goes beyond what she does or anything that she could serve me with. And so I'm letting her know that she is more important. Who she is more important. So when I start that conversation, we have that conversation, and I say, well, why Secret Knock? Why would you go, out of all the places in the world, why would you go to Secret Knock? What's your answer?
Because I love everyone here.
Okay. So now, what do I know about her? What? Two sisters. What else? Connect. Likes what? Community. She's loving. Quiet, gentle spirit.
She doesn't like the beach.
She doesn't like the beach. Yeah, she didn't want to travel.
We're on the beach.
Yes.